Welcome to the Week in Sports Cars and the Marshall Pruitt Podcast, presented by Cooper Tires, presented by the Justice Brothers, presented by the awesome Juan Montoya.
How you doing?
I'm good.
What's going on?
You notice my beard's a little darker than usual?
You painted it?
My wife made me dye it. I'd look like a
I don't
Smurf.
know. I don't know if it's darker. It looks...
It is.
No, I think it's like a more one-toned. It's like a...
See, because my hair has yet to turn gray, but my beard... It revolted years ago. I'll send you a... Well, you
Marshall,
see
are you sure she said diet and not diet?
I'm doing both. I'm doing both. Speaking of, how are you?
Wonderful.
Connie's cooking. Looks like it's been really good.
It's been about the same as last year.
I know, but if I don't make fun, then you would think there was something wrong.
Okay. Just making sure.
All right, Mr. Montoya, we're here. The Rolex 24 at Daytona, an event that you have been very successful at. Last year, with the debut with the Acura Team Penske team, I would say it was a good year. Didn't necessarily get all that you wanted. What's your general mindset coming into 2019? Multiple wins?
I think
win every race?
I think, it all depends what the BOP is, more than anything else. I think as a team, we're much better prepared than last year. I think Acura has done an amazing job with the engine and the car and everything, and everybody at Team Penske, we've been working really hard. But as you saw last year, it doesn't matter how well prepared we are. If the package is not, evenly or in your favor, it makes it pretty tough.
We hate the letters BOP, by the way, so you're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, I know. I think IMSA always tries to do the best job they can.
Sure.
And I'm sure, I think everybody tends to disagree. Whatever they do is always wrong for somebody. But, kind of... A job kind of sucks in a way, doesn't it, for those guys, because they're never going to please everybody. Whether they're fighting for 2/10 or a second, there's always someone in disadvantage.
I think every driver, team owner, and members of the media should be forced to spend one day working part of IMSA's BOP technical crew just to receive the hatred from everyone else. I know how much I write about how much I hate it.
You know what it would be good is to try, do that and try it. Might get it right, or closer, or something. I don't know. It's a tough job. I don't envy IMSA from that point of view. They've done an amazing job with the series. They got a ton of manufacturers involved. That I think we got more manufacturers than any other class out there.
BOP, really specific to sports car racing. I guess this is one of the few times you've really had that impact on your career. I mean, it does seem when we wander around a paddock in sports car racing, it dominates conversations, it dominates it. Is that what it feels like from the inside?
It kind of does, because you try to, you go and you prepare yourself and you do a good job, and if you do a really good job, they go, ooh, the car is too fast. It's not Penske did an amazing job and they got a better car than anybody, is the car is too fast. So it's like last year sometimes, and it's tough, to talk about this, and you don't want to hurt anybody's feeling or be rude about it, but it feels like sometimes if you do less, you get more.
When the bags of sand might appear.
Yeah, not even sandbagging, it's like if you try not to trim your car, and if you try to, I think a lot of the P2 cars last year run maximum downforce everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And everybody thought, that's their speed.
Yeah.
And they adjusted to that. And what they didn't realize is they were max downforce to reach that speed. We know what our car compares to the standard Erica, and it wasn't that different. And we know, and when they're 4 or 5 miles an hour quicker than you down the straights, there's something wrong.
Let's get into some questions from folks who are going to be watching and tuning in this weekend.
There's plenty of them.
That's a lot of cursing, a lot of hate mail. I'm really
but that's normal.
But I sent them, so that's
you did?
And fellas, that's just his family.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I tell you.
But lots asking about how much you enjoy or otherwise.
Oh, I love it. I really do.
The media's garbage, but the driving.
But dealing with you, every week, are you kidding me? At least when you don't go, it's kind of quiet and nice.
That's where you earn the real money, when you have to put up with me. But that's
okay.
We're telling the truth here.
Team shirt on.
You don't know how often we mention you on this show.
Oh, lots.
You're almost,
a lot?
Yeah, you're like a second co-host.
Yes, you and Christophe Boucher all the time.
Yeah.
He's bad. You're good though. We like you.
He's saying that because I'm here.
I savage you when you aren't, but that's okay. We have that relationship. Mr. Goodwin, where should we go? We don't have Juan for long.
Well, I'm going to ask you one quick question. Ryan Terpstra, ask the only question here about Formula One. Do you miss it? Do you miss F1?
No.
Good.
No, I mean, honestly, the cars, they drive amazing.
Yeah.
And nothing drives like a Formula 1 car. But the amount of politics that came with driving the car wasn't worth it. At least, for me, it wasn't worth it.
I can always tell by watching either the posts or reposts of your Formula One era, how's this, instead of reposting things from today's events, you and whether it's a screaming BMW V10 or otherwise, they're just, not only do you get a million folks who love it, but you can just tell there's so much passion involved from the vehicle side when you drove that.
It's like, it was amazing because, it took me like 10 years to go back to the paddock because I was racing NASCAR and I was just not interested at all. I actually went to, my first time back, I went to Italy because a friend of mine asked me for some help. That was racing GP2. That was about it. And I went to talk to some of the drivers and there was like, the cars just don't drive like they used to. I think nowadays they drive really well. I think the power nowadays is really good and the grip level with the big tires is really high. So it makes it a little more fun. You still got the hybrid side that the thing accelerates really fast at the corner and then you end up with, 600 horsepower or something down the straight just when you run out of juice. So that's kind of normal.
You're in a great era where you had juice all the time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Brings us actually to a couple of questions about the car you're going to race this weekend, about where that ranks in terms of how enjoyable they are.
Oh, probably number 2 after Formula 1.
Really?
Oh,
yes. Wow. Yeah. Like, out of everything I've driven, for feel-wise, this is the closest thing that I've driven that drives like a Formula 1 car. Of course, the grip level is less,
sure,
but the braking performance is unbelievable. The handling is good. It doesn't have any bad habits. It seems like it was built to be a race car. When you drive, for example, an IndyCar, it was always compromised because the gearbox was from like a 1970 IndyCar.
Yeah.
Big, heavy gearbox, and the weight is in the wrong place, and the car had a lot of bad habits. When I drove the IndyCar back in the day, it drove a lot better. The car today, it took me a long time to get the hang of it because it just didn't drive good.
And if we're talking about your Acura ARX 05, I haven't had a chance to catch up with you on the shift from Continental to Michelin. What's that been like for you as well?
It's been good. I think, Continental did a good job for us. It was a very good tire. Honestly, I think Michelin did an amazing job. I think they could have brought I think we all hope for softer tires than what they brought. At least, personally, I did. Because, the tires we tested initially, the grip level was through the roof.
Yeah. We want those.
Yeah,
please.
Of course, it's when it's a one tire series, there's no point for them to risk blisters and stuff, and you got to understand that. But from the driving part of it, it's like, that's the ones I wanted.
Yeah. Let's go to a great question from Tom Neal on Facebook. He says, Juan, what's it like now seeing your son progress through karting in comparison to your career? He said, my son's karting scares the hell out of my wife, but we love it. Your kid, he's going to be the one bringing home the money, right? You're going to be able to retire, live off that kid?
I hope so.
You're putting money into it, too, so it's a good investment.
Yeah, I don't look at it as an investment. I think I look at it like a family thing and an opportunity for him. You know what I mean? It's something that I always had the chance to do, and I loved it, and if I can do the same with my kid, I will.
He's
you know what
good,
I mean?
too.
He's very good. That's the problem. Honestly, it's like, for his age, his knowledge, right like today, he knows what I knew when I was probably 22.
Dang.
No, honestly, it is freaking crazy.
That's also what it should be, though, is that next generation should be a little bit better than us.
Yeah,
but that's advanced.
Honestly, like, the first time he got in, we've done a couple of tests in cars, nothing too serious, you know what I mean? And you look at it and you go, oh my God. It took me 3 years to do that, you know?
Well, I've got a couple of questions on a similar kind of theme. One's from Evan Kramer from Twitter, and one's from Karen Perez Frederico on Facebook, around the same kind of theme, which is about your goals that you've got left in your career.
I just want to win freaking races.
There you go. Right? That's Evan. You know, say you've won just about everything. Is there still one race you'd really like to win? The other point here is about the Triple Crown. There's a lot of talk about the Triple Crown.
But the problem, not problem. In reality, it's I'm involved with Acura and with Honda-related company. And
can we announce the LMP1 program now? Go back to Le Mans. Save that for later. Okay, sorry.
I wish.
David Hovis is shooting daggers at me right now. Humor. Just kidding.
And as long as and I hope I can stay in this program for a long time.
But that's one of the things I love about you, man, is, of course you'd love to win all these huge races, but you don't get up in the morning saying, I want this one. You say, I want to get up and win, period. It's just a very basic, I'm a racer, compete. Yeah, for me personally, I don't get up in the morning and go, I got to win that so I complete myself as a driver. The hell? We're just waiting for you to complete yourself as a human being. But we get the driving side too. Get in line. My wife is first in line there. Where should we go next, brother?
Let's go to Cookie Monster. This is from the Reddit group for USCR. Absolutely.
That could be you.
Comparison between the cockpit environment for you in a NASCAR and in the Acura. The cockpit environment for you, restrictions or comfort?
None.
Or
The cockpit is a lot smaller and honestly, the Acura, if you look at the car, it's an open wheel with better downforce. It really is. You know what I mean? It's the cockpit where we're sitting is legs up. It's just,
there might be space. There might be, quote, a two-seater, but in reality,
from
where you were.
No. But if you look at our car,
I know. There's
the oldest seater, you would have to be like 3 years old to fit.
So Ricky Taylor, then, yes.
No. I think half of Ricky would fit on the other side.
Fair enough.
So you get an idea.
No, but that is a great point, though. It is truly like an open wheeler with a high keel and everything else.
Yeah, like if you look at underneath how the air flows and everything, and having the tires covered, it's actually, if people don't know, it's actually better for aerodynamics. The biggest drag in a car is the tires. So if you take the tires out of the equation, we go pretty damn fast.
Yeah. Craig Johnson asks this, and it's on the same kind of theme, and it's about, you've probably had more sharp transitions in your career than many. He's asking what the biggest challenges you faced when transitioning from full-time IndyCar driver to full-time INSA. What about which car transition has been the most difficult, F1 to IndyCar?
No, I think the hardest...
stock car?
The stock car was probably the hardest because you needed to go really slow to go fast. Not in a bad way, you really needed to... just don't try.
That's a mental reprogramming thing, right?
Yeah. And thinking when you're going to crash, that's about right where you need to be. Honestly, for your mind, an open wheel guy, where you think you're crashing, that's probably at the rear of the car coming out of the corner, that's probably about right. That's when the car is about right.
Well, and I'm not trying to blow smoke here, but of all the things you are famous for, your car control is kind of legendary. So for you, quote, crashing, that's actually a place where comfort-wise, you can do stuff.
Dude, I don't know if they would ever release it. You need to get the video of the roar when it rained and your car was when there was aquaplaning.
Okay, I got a mission here. We got to find that.
I don't know if they'll release that. They'll probably let you see it without releasing it. Oh my God!
That was your.
And it was announced. It's like I got out of the bank and I got in the radio. I said, "We're crashing, guys." I did say. I said it was just like that on the radio. We're crashing, and they're looking at the data. Oh, it's still moving.
Were you having fun, or was it panic? Oh my gosh!
No. I was like, oh. It was weird because I ended up going left. The car aquaplaned, and so I went. I know there's in the back straight you can go left, so I went left parallel to the track, and from the exit of the banking in turn NASCAR 2 to the bus stop, I was trying to catch the car all the way down.
Tokyo drifting.
No, the car was going straight. My hands were not. It is.
You are a freak, Montoya.
No.
That's why we love you, man.
There's
I'm serious.
Full opposite lock. When I'm telling you full, the lock is completely locked all the way down, and the car is still going straight.
Wow.
It is pretty damn cool.
Got two more questions, because just a couple of minutes with on. One's a lead on from that one, from Darren Wicken from Twitter, and asks, with all the moves you've made between series and teams in your career, is there one you regret?
None. I really don't. I really enjoy NASCAR. It's a shame at the end.
You're not a regret guy.
No, honestly, NASCAR was really good for me, and we were really good. I felt I should have changed teams, but for loyalty, I stayed. And I think that was the only mistake that I think I made. But I still, you know what I mean, when the team was going down, I felt that in the good, Ganassi was there with me when we were good. And I felt I needed to be with him when he was bad. And that ended up, losing my job, I guess. But it, ended up leading me to Penske and a lot of great things. So, you know what I mean, another Indy 500. So everything happens for a reason. You can ask whatever you want.
Oh, no, absolutely. No, it's fine.
I'm predicting your answer ahead of time and going, I don't think that, there's probably not much there, but let's try.
Let's try it.
This comes in from Ed Joris. Says, if you dare, is there anyone that you expect to be on site at Daytona this weekend that you don't want to run into?
Apart from
I don't know
Marshall.
if he's talking about on track or in the you never want to see
and the
either,
paddock. No, I'll tell you,
and if so,
we always have close encounters with the Porsche, with the GT2, whatever it's called, the GT Le Mans, or whatever it is, yeah. And with those Porsches, we always, when we're on track, we ended up running into each other. It's like a freaking magnet.
They let them know when you're in the car, by the way.
I bet it wouldn't surprise me. And there's always, when you get that to them, it's a freaking nightmare. And in practice, we had a problem with the button, and the flashes were on all the time. So when I got to them, I flashed the light, and they everything they do, they run wild like they always do, and don't give you. And the thing was flashing like crazy, and I think they were thinking, this guy's being a complete asshole.
Montoya, yeah.
Very, very Montoya-like.
Wow.
And I passed him, and the guy's flashing the lights back at me, and I'm going, I'm not anything. It's like, I even waited for the straight to pass you, and I'm getting flashed because my car is broken, but it's like, welcome to my world.
Montoya, I love you, man. Thanks for taking some time.
Yeah, no worries, guys.
Folks are going to love this. No, you got to go run and
all right.
take care of business. But
I'll see you through the weekend.
All right, brother. Well, that was a blast with our man Montoya. Now you see why he comes up so often during the show, Graham.
And you did get to me personally.
Yeah, hey, I mean, we got the full rotation of Montoya goodness.
He was ticking off the boxes as he was speaking.
And when he said me personally, you know what immediately jumped into my mind? Hashtag me personally. Good Lord. All right, so we got a bunch of great questions this week, as we always do. We're also sitting here in the media center in my little radio room that Daytona International Speedway kindly provisions. This is, believe it or not, the first time we've actually seen each other in a year. No Le Mans for me or Watkins.
Was it Sebring? We did one together. Sebring in the house.
Apologies.
And that's the only time other than, in fact, the only time we've done it in the same room. A podcast.
Hey.
A podcast.
There might be children listening, Goodwin. We limit your stripper past as much as we can during the show. So that was a blast. We're going to do our best to get to as many questions as we can. This is not going to be one of the longer episodes. Oh, no. So as we try and say kindly here on our Week in Sports Cars podcast, presented to you by Cooper Tires and the Justice Brothers. If we didn't get to it, you really want us to answer it, send it in. Might take 2-3 times.
Oh, yeah.
I think 4 might have been the max, but we will get there eventually. Let's jump into IMSA since we're here, ready to rock and roll almost with a Rolex 24.
I'm going to serve them up to you. I mean, it does strike me that the look of that paddock and the feel of that paddock, it feels like not so much a major international all-star event, but a massive American event, and that's a good thing. And with that in mind, we've got some question asking goodness. We're going to go and start here from Stephen Donk, and this is, I think, a second time of asking from Stephen. He asked this around the Raw. Does Daytona International Speedway still have a self-imposed speed limit of 200 miles an hour? And if so, how did IMSA manage to create the performance split between DPI and P2? It would be simple enough at other tracks to increase power and revs across the board.
We have certainly heard for sure that it is a number that IMSA and prior to IMSA Grand Am tried to stay beneath. It's definitely a number that, for reasons that I don't fully understand, and I don't mean that in a negative way, I just don't understand. I need to ask and find out. But yes, 200, staying below that, certainly a goal that we have seen carried out. These things you manage usually through revs or aero. Especially, again, prototypes, by and large, it'll just be a case of limiting revs if needed to make sure that from a top-end standpoint, you can't wind the cars out forever and keep building speed There's also that mandating in some cases of specific minimum rear wing angles or a wicker, body wicker and such added at the end of the engine cover, which will be a little bit taller, extract a little more air from the diffuser and slow the cars down. So a couple ways to do it. Very efficient.
Absolutely. David Barker will ask Twitter questions. Do we know what became of ESM's second Nissan? Did Cord buy that one as well? But just using it as a backup. Don't recall hearing its fate. I can say this, by the way, because I was down with the Cord Sport team just a little while ago. 2 spare engines being prepped for that car for the single Ligier Nissan DPI.
Core Autosport bought everything. David, they took everything. They only plan on racing one that we know of right now that would fit what they have done for many, many years. But yes, they did take everything off of Tequila Patron ESM when they shut down. And so, yeah, they do have both chassis. And we'll mention core team principal Morgan Brady said he was devastated to hear when I looked at the car and said, that doesn't look anything like the Nissan GTP cars in terms of the livery. And, I was partially kidding, but it's a metallic blue.
It's a very different blue, isn't it?
And it's a muted red. And having been in the series, seen those cars up front, loved them, etc. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe at another round they can do an actual proper Nissan GTP livery.
It's a nod towards it, but it does look good.
Well, but my point to Morgan, and I love Morgan, I said, half measures. If you're going to do it, do it. Don't get partial pregnancy. Come on, man, all the way there.
Adam Bowman on Facebook, hello Adam, asked do either of us think that Aston Martin might choose to run the 12 Hours of Sebring in addition to the WC race and the desire to secure a team and to run an Aston factory effort stateside?
That's certainly all you there, Mr. Goodwin.
Well, I think the answer is let's wait and see. I think there's a range of things that are going to be happening at Sebring with the double event we've actually got coming. I was having a quick chat with Harry Tinknell in the paddock just a few moments ago. Harry. And 2 things from that, one of which is that obviously Harry and Ollie Pla will be doing double duty. We know that Toyota have forbidden their drivers from doing so.
Holly Plinknell.
Holly Plinknell, very good.
That would be their Brangelina type, yeah.
But also, that much of the crew for the 55 car will be doing double duty
Mazda.
Between the Mazda effort, as they're doing here. It's principally the Multimatic 4GT WC crew, and they will be handing over the reins to that 55 car to the US-based crew after Sebring, but they'll be doing double duty with the 4GT as well, so that's a mighty effort from them. Aston Martin, let's wait and see. There's a couple of questions to be asked here, there's a couple of questions to be asked thereafter about what's going on, but I think all the signs are pointing at the moment to something of a delay in their aspirations in North America. Could that be the answer to something of, I want to say it with a very small s, stagnation in GTLM across the world at the moment? Could it be? It could be, but I think it's going to require a better commercial package than currently exists for that effort. Let's wait and see that one come pan out.
Let's see. We got one here from Chris Kleiber who says, with NBC being the TV partner for IMSA, do you see NBC promoting either Daytona or Sebring as a big event like they do with the Indy 500 or the Kentucky Derby? NBC is promoting these big events, but it doesn't seem like IMSA has a seat at the big event table. I'm told, Chris, that it will. I can also say that, and this is not any kind of humble brag moment, but having spent a good 10 to 14 hours a day the past 2+ weeks since I got back from the Roar, trying to crank out enough advanced Rolex 24 features that we're putting up at least 3, if not 4 or 5 of those per day. I haven't watched a lot of television, especially NBCSN or NBC, to know if advertisements have gone up to support it. So that's pure ignorance on my part, but for good reasons. I know that at least internally, Scott Atherton and many others from the series told me that in the meetings they've had, in the meetings that NBC has called them up to be a part of, even with all the other partners too, IndyCar and you name it, they're all told that, we're trying to raise all of your profiles through this. I can say for sure one thing which was captured during the Roargram, haven't seen it, but was told it was going to be run 2 or 3 times, something like a half hour to 1 hour IMSA season preview, Daytona / preview on NBCSN. That's That's
a big commitment.
A big commitment that's different than what they were able to do in the past.
Well, the other thing I'd say, in contrast with some of the other series that certainly I cover, is the degree to which external enterprise in promotion, this podcast being a great example of it, the talk show, which is the new enterprise for Tommy Kendall and the son of legendary race driver
In
Derek Bell.
American, it's torque.
Talk.
In
Talk.
Anglican,
That's another of those words. Here we go.
It's talk. It sounds like talk to our
Talk.
ear. Yes,
As in talk wrench.
Yes.
But here in the paddock and set up. But Justin Bell, he'll be joining us for the live show we've got here with Mazda on Friday. It's great to see that what we've not got is all the eggs being put in one basket, that actually this opportunity to promote the overall effort is being, well, very much welcomed. There's not barriers being put in the way, and that's a good thing. There's not many race series where you'll see that. But good to see. Let's wait and see what actually comes out from NBC.
I think for sure that we're going to see more of NBC's promotional efforts evolve. Isn't necessarily something they have to do all at the outset, so I would hope for Sebring, which is another, honestly, it's older and I would say more iconic than the Rolex 24. I would hope that we would have that kind of treatment.
And let's remember, if actually this is an investment from a broadcast channel, it's in their interest to do it. This is actually all about them drawing more viewers and more advertising revenue and all of that. It's in their interest to market something they think there is marketability for. So it's a bit of a test on both sides, really. Let's try with... Which way you want to go there?
Let's go with Nick Dovbiniak, who asks, do all the Cadillac DPIs get delivered in the same specification? Are they all using the same chassis? Answer, as far as I know, Nick, is yes. That Dallara-built Cadillac DPI VR. One of the cool things here today, might have seen it, I'm not sure if I sent out the photo yet, but is a bare Dallara Cadillac tub just sitting out. And it was great to see. But yes, it's the same parts and pieces. Another thing I'll just mention quickly is that each constructor has a different mindset as to how cars are supplied. To some, they send you a complete car, and this isn't limited to prototypes or anything else, it's just in general. And others send you boxes of parts and pieces. When I was a young race car mechanic, remember that Swift, which was a very prominent constructor here in the U.S., they would send you the car bolted together. They changed that after a while, but they would send it to you fully assembled, but with more or less old, worn-out nuts and bolts.
Wow.
Because to make sure that you did not go on track with it. This was not a turnkey delivery. It was, no, jackass, we just made it so it can roll into the trailer and go to where you live.
You can see which way it goes together.
You need to do a proper build on this.
And there are others, of course, and particularly this is the case when you've got new projects. We saw this with a couple of the LMP1 projects for WEC, where the team will turn up to the constructor and help them to build up the original cars. That they will actually learn their own car in the bosom, if you like, of the constructor and the designer of that project. And that's a great thing.
All right, brother, where are we going on?
I'll do another question from Nick, and asks, are all the GTLM cars using the same tyre, or does Michelin offer different things to Ford or anybody else from what they're doing for Corvette, for instance?
Not to my knowledge. We did have that one rare exception made, I think, 2 years ago for the Porsche, where they gave them an extra option to use. They're basically finding that they were having issues with, I believe it was, I apologize, but I believe it was a rear tire or something along those lines where the temperature range was not exactly a perfect fit for them, but that was a rare exception.
Yeah, we had that certainly in the GTE Pro class a couple of years back, where Porsche funded development for Michelin. That meant that their project came on very quickly. It meant that, for instance, Aston Martin was struggling, which, by the way, was the genesis of Aston Martin going for that single full season, their championship winning season, to Dunlop. That all changed back with an OEM deal for Michelin to supply tyres not just for the race team but for the road cars as well. But it can happen in that way. I, like you, am not aware that it's happening here. Massive transition, of course, for Michelin. I know you at Racer and Stephen Kilby for Daily Sports Car have been dipping into that story. But this is a huge step up for Michelin here at IMSA, and it's great to see not just the kind of PR efforts and the branding efforts, but a lot of engineers interacting with those teams up and down the paddock here.
I'm a huge fan of quality, and that's why I, until I see otherwise, am always happy to sing the praises of Michelin, because what have we seen on their behalf in sports car racing for decades? The best.
Yeah.
And granted, there have been times where Dunlop, for example, absolutely had their measure in LMP2, or we've seen in GTE Pro, or GTE
when they focus, it tends to be a bit of a death ray.
So you might think, hey, isn't this podcast sponsored by Cooper Tires? Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
But one of the great things about Cooper as well is, look, they're competitors. They're not in sports cars. They're not competing against Michelin here in IMSA or the WEC and otherwise, but they are of the same mind. Hey, go build your best, go compete, and if you win, congratulations. So that's maybe why, at least in my reporting style, Graham, I try and tell folks what I see as the truth. And maybe the company that Michelin has replaced was not always the recipient of the kindest words, but that's because the product, as I saw it, did not warrant it.
I remember one of the things that is a part of the deal with Michelin for IMSA moving forward is that GTLM here is still an open tyre formula. No one steps up yet. I think they will. I think you're going to see it next year. And I think I know where it's coming from. But I think you're going to find that there is competition in GTLM in years to come. And I hope so, because that's always been a special part of it. Actually, when you move beyond the pure commercial punch of a single tyre supplier deal, which is part of the attraction, actually the competitive instincts tend to come to the fore, and the guys really do like that. As a quick answer, by the way, from a USCR Reddit questioner from 4for4, it builds on the point both about Michelin and also about that point about NBC and these surrounding activities here. How can IMSA, and for that matter Blomp and America, grow their fan base beyond the diehards that appeal to the average car guy who thinks racing is just NASCAR or Formula One? It's a really good question, and I think the whole point here is it is about activating the manufacturers that are involved in the racing, including the suppliers, fuel suppliers, the tyre suppliers. 19 manufacturers involved on the card here this weekend with him. So that's a phenomenal number of original equipment manufacturers.
This is purely a guess. Could be completely wrong as well, but I would think that if we're talking to folks who only know of the names NASCAR and Formula One, and you're looking for reasons to tell them why IMSA, why tuning into the Rolex 24 might be of interest, it comes back to Graham's point that we have not just the volume of manufacturers, but it's a different mindset. This is 19 manufacturers spread across WeatherTech, spread across the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series, spread across a lot of things, but the reason we follow sports car racing in such crazy detail is because this is proof. This is excellence on display spread across so many manufacturers and mindsets. So if you go to NASCAR and you say, well, there are 3 manufacturers.
Yep.
And the rules say that the cars more or less look the same. Everything's regulated, just everything. There's almost no freedom whatsoever. It's an entertainment formula.
Yes.
And there's, again, nothing wrong with that. But
be honest about it.
That's the appeal.
Yes.
And the driver names and personalities. Formula One, high tech, etc. It's all hidden, right? Yep. It's not something where anyone's welcome to take a look at it. So high speed cars, flashy looking cars, and some very high profile drivers. So there's great stuff there. Here, I think angle-wise, if I'm trying to get folks interested, would say, hey, you know how in a lot of the other series you might know of or follow, you can't really look and say, aha, here's a big Fortune 50 brand, a Ford, trying to beat the living poop out of a Corvette. This is American factory versus German factory versus Italian factory. This is a global battle for technological advancements, for actually, the true win on Sunday, sell on Monday. I don't know if we see that so much in other series. And then I would just say, to complete the answer here, don't talk about anything we did at the open of the show about BOP with Montoya, because if that then kind of kicks the legs out of the argument of, hey, it's amazing. Look at all the creativity involved with the car. Oh, and they just got 50 kilos.
Let me give you one.
So keep that part out.
For me, it's aspirational motorsport. Whether or not that's the brands, whether or not that's the fact that, you know what, you had a bit of ability, you had the money, you can come and do this. You can come and do this. You can't do that in Formula One. And I'll give you one tiny story. It was a dinner away at one of the WEC races, the early days of WEC. 5 guys.
Dinner with racers, you said?
No, not dinner with racers. No, that's something completely different and unacceptable for a family show.
Oh, stop that. Those are our friends.
They are indeed. But
there's no Patreon page there that I know of with dinner with racers.
Don't.
Sorry.
You two can... Yeah, no. But it was... the conversation came around to basically road cars. 5 people around that table, all of them had bought Audi road cars. Not been supplied with Audi road cars, had bought an Audi road car. Now, they were people who were following the sports car orbits around the planet and have been persuaded of the quality of the product. I mean, I've had loan cars from Audi before now. I bought myself an Audi. When I had the money to spend, I bought myself an Audi. That's what it can do with exposure to that kind of level of ability, cleverness, design, etc. And there's something there. That's why these manufacturers are here. That's why the vendor row that sits behind us here, where we're going to be doing the live show later this week, Marshall, that's why that's ram-jam full of the latest shiny products from every manufacturer that's going to be represented on the various grids here this week.
So I don't want to belabor this answer too much longer, but I do feel the need to throw in one other thing, and it's a concern, and it's that I grew up in a time where brand A versus brand B, that was a big thing. People spoke about that. There was true rivalries. I don't know if that's so much of a thing with today's the latest generation. Again, that's something I could be completely
supercars,
wrong.
Definitely.
Well, but this is Australia, a small island of people just starved for entertainment.
In fairness,
enough so that they have to import you for the Bathurst 12.
Yeah, but big island, just fewer people.
Okay.
But no, there are still some tribal rivalries.
So no doubt. I just don't know if that's something that a 20-year-old might get excited over. I would hope they would, though.
LinkedIn, in a sort of crowbar it in there somehow.
Did you say linked in?
Linked. Douglas Holtzman from Facebook. Hi, Douglas. It's based from a previous podcast. We put a lot of work in during Daytona. We do, and Marshall in particular does. And it's appreciated. Thank you for that. But do you look forward to a day you go there as a true spectator? Full camping on site, bonfires, grilling, possibly consuming adult beverages. Says he's looking forward to the live podcast. I know we are too. I'll answer for myself. I do not ever see me coming here as a spectator. Is the honest answer. I do love coming to a race meeting.
As much as you love Florida?
As much as I love Florida. Neither do I see myself going to Le Mans as a spectator in the future. And the reason for that, this came around when my beloved founding editor, Malcolm Cracknell, had to retire through ill health, and hope you're listening, Malk. And thank you very much for the letter to the editor you sent just a couple of days ago.
He told you off proper.
He did tell you off proper. But he walked directly away from motorsport, which had been a consuming passion for him for his entire adult life, and I couldn't understand it. I found that very difficult to understand, but with a little bit more maturity on my part and thinking it through, I completely get it. If you have been as imbued with something like this sport as much as we have, I think I would struggle actually to take a step back and accept something less than that in the future. I hope not, but I think I would struggle to actually do that.
That's a concern that I have in knowing what it's like being not just behind the scenes, but very deep behind the scenes, and the thought of one day would I be able to just sit in a grandstand seat and enjoy this in a way that is pure and or similar to everyone else sitting around me. And I think it's the blessings of access and relationships and such. I mean, everyone else here, whether it's in the media center, garage, pit lane, up in the officiating tower, everyone works incredibly hard and burns far too many hours doing this. So that part's universal. But I think for what I would anticipate if I did not have those things, I think I would get bored.
Maybe. I mean, I think I'd like to actually do other things with my family. actually spend some of that time with my girls that, don't see enough of me during the racing season.
But that also maybe speaks to my and our, we do have lives outside of this.
Yep.
We also probably would need to train our brains to slow down a little bit.
Yeah, which wouldn't be a bad thing.
Up in my case.
But. You know what? There are examples where I have had the opportunity to go along and watch historic racing, for instance, and I've enjoyed that. I hope I do enjoy it if there's a life beyond this. And by the way, as I said to my wife, I'm never going to retire. They'll have to carry me out the office in a box. But because that's something we can continue, at least at some level, into a ripe old age, and I hope so too. But
just open the windows and let the cats in.
Absolutely, they'll eat the face off me. No problem at all. One for you there from Stephen Kilsdonk.
Stephen, you said, a question regarding the Riley Multimatic LMP2/DPI. My understanding is that the Mazda has a large amount of upgrades since the original design from Riley Multimatic, with significant alterations to the suspension concept and geometry, so I would assume it stands above all the other DPIs as the largest derivation from its P2 origins. If and when another OEM works with Multimatic in the future, how much are they going to take advantage of the work to improve that's been done to improve the Mazda DPI over the past several years, and how much would that OEM need to finance its own parallel development to seemingly reinvent the wheel with their own car?
I'll just add one quick point there. You're absolutely right, by the way, Stephen. An excellent session with Larry Holt from Multimatic when Multimatic took on the reins from what had been previously a Riley Multimatic, and he said to me something which spoke volumes to the task here, which is, look, it's a Riley Multimatic. Multimatic are a company that does suspension, but yet it hasn't got a Multimatic suspension.
Yeah, and so we're not saying,
early car,
not
by the way.
saying anything mean or negative towards our friends at Riley Technologies. The original suspension design carried back to an older prototype concept that they had used, and at least for what the Mazda team found, it did not suit their needs. There was space at the back of the car to completely redesign the rear suspension. So what raced in 2017 at the back was removed altogether, and a fairly conventional push rod rocker arm setup at the back was what came back in 2018. Much happier, just everything worked a whole lot more better. Where there were limitations is at the front. And this actually comes down to the chassis. The tub design itself was meant to carry this this Riley designed suspension up front. It's essentially a notch that is built into the front top of the tub. And while there have been modifications and alterations there as well, Graham, that is not something that they could simply strip away and, say, recreate the traditional bell crank style pushrod suspension up front. So that, I think, could possibly require, and this would be an IMSA thing, not necessarily an ACO FIA thing. If a manufacturer came to Multimatic, there's one there right now that has a car we expect to see next year with ovals that are blue. That's, again, as the technical guy, that's something I'm keenly interested to see and learn about, because I would imagine the requests would be made. I would be making requests to say, hey, I know this is the tub you made, launched in 2017. You've had to work with it. Can we modify the front to suit our needs so we can have the suspension we want, not a legacy thing that you can't get out of because it's baked in?
It would be interesting, wouldn't it, to talk to the chassis manufacturers when we can deal with this as being history rather than right now, to find out what's in their design of those LMP2 cars, because that's what these are based on. What in those designs took account of the needs of the parallel DPI programs? I'm pretty certain that wasn't the case with Orica. I'm pretty certain it wasn't the case with Ligier. Was it with the Dallara chassis for Cadillac, and was it with Multimatic with Riley? And would those same decisions have been taken had it been Multimatic-led from the beginning? And my strong suspicion is it wouldn't.
Let's try and get through our last IMSA questions and then move on. I'm going to go to Adam Smith here. It says, hey guys, Rolex 24 question. I know they had a qualifying session back at the Roar, but then there's another qualifying session coming Thursday. How does that work? Which session determines the starting grid? And this is the thing that we fear and don't love so much, Adam, is the confusion that comes from this. The, quote, qualifying session that was held at the Roar was done to determine pit lane position and also garage space position, with the fastest in the 4 classes having the ability to pick where they happen to fall, and then second gets to pick second, etc. This, quote, qualifying race that they had was never really intended to be just for those things. It was what we want to do is make sure we get at least one dang session during the Roar where we're mostly confident folks aren't completely sandbagging. So how can we incentivize that? What carrots can we dangle to get folks to not completely manipulate the process? So they came up with this qualifying thing. Those times mean nothing. They are not official in terms of anything taking place this weekend. So on Thursday, Adam, and the rest of our dear listeners, real qualifying happens on Thursday.
Absolutely.
I don't know what the Roar thing should be called. We know it shouldn't be called qualifying, but should it be called the first pick session? I don't know what we call it, but just to strip confusion.
I'd equate it to one of those perhaps slightly poor parenting where you've got to get your toddler to eat their greens and you offer them, you can have an Xbox One if you eat your broccoli.
Ooh.
It's that kind of thing, isn't it? The one thing I'd say briefly, by the way,
broccoli
I
session.
think we've got every chance of qualifying being wet on Thursday.
Well, our friend P.J. Jones will be very happy about that, as his 26-year-old qualifying record would then stand. Let's see. We'll go to Paul Hirsch here quickly. Paul, you said on one of your podcasts, you talked about the heyday of IMSA being a perfect training ground for mechanics and engineers. Do you think IMSA is still a good training ground? How do you think they can improve it? Definitely think it's a great training ground, Paul, where the old IMSA had advantages, is that those mechanics, those engineers, those just about everybody touching the vehicles had more freedom to do more things. So as a result of that, with more freedom, you gain more skills. So fabrication, for example, that's something where, at least in my time coming up, whether it's open wheel or sports cars that I was working in, you were expected to be able to make things for the car, lots of different things, and do lots of different things. So one of the things we've lost has just happened over time, where spec-mindedness, everything must be bought from a manufacturer A, B, or C. It has a specific serial number. Some of these things in the past, no joke, have been RFID'd.
Oh, yeah.
With folks from the series walking up and down the grid, checking all the components to make sure none of them have been made illegally by the team. So just from a skill set standpoint, Graham, we can say that today's mechanics and engineers, just as skilled, maybe even more than we were in the past, just in different ways because they have less freedom. So I would say the ability to look deeper and to find more things, or to have to achieve mechanical perfection, these things matter more than ever. I don't know if we ever really said, we got it there 98%, we're good to go. Well, not anymore.
Here's an example of how spec. There's a valve on the fuel cell for modern race cars, which means if the car is inverted, that the fuel won't spill out. Now, you may or may not remember Lara competition getting a pole position, I think, in the WEC in GTM, and had that pole position taken away because the part that was fitted was not the FIA spec part, but an IMSA replacement. Now, here's the rub. That IMSA replacement had been on every single one of those cars, including the factory cars at Le Mans, for the whole life of those cars. Yet it was picked up the once. But those parts are effectively spec and stay the same. We're running out of time.
I know. So, again, if we didn't get to your questions, send them in. We're going to try and mash the throttle even more. What should we do? Should we get to a couple of fun in general and then see if we have time for some more here?
Let's go for a bit of fun.
MP and Graham, you've been accused of sandbagging your ramp-up coverage to the 24 Hours of Daytona.
Never.
Rodney Sandstorm found clues regarding your sandbagging. What clues did he find in your sandbags? I assume you saw the video.
I did see the video. That was
Yes.
actually, I think, you know what?
There's only one error in that video. But,
Which was?
I got a camera angle wrong, so you could see the tripod with the camera in the other shot. But that's fine. He's learning.
He's learning. It was a good.
Brilliant. A lot of views, too.
Very good. What would they find about us sandbagging? They might find that I've had a slightly unfair advantage in that Stephen Kilby's been in the US since the Raw.
Have you been paying for this American adventure?
No, he doesn't know that yet, but no.
Oh.
No one will ever find out. No one will listen to this. No.
A kid from the UK in Florida and or the East Coast.
Watching the Miami Heat for a week, and then with his good friend lives a little further north. But he's had a brilliant time.
How has he failed to be on an episode of Cops?
We don't know yet that he has failed, but he's had a ball. But that has meant that we've had the advantage of a little bit of time zone loveliness. What would they find? They'd find probably his Miami. I'm sure he's got some awful Miami Heat jersey somewhere.
Yeah, and for me, I guess it's the obvious. A lot of stickers, probably. Way too many stickers.
You've come stickered up, mate.
Yeah. Well, we have lots. And if you're coming out, by the way, I should have mentioned this in the beginning. If you're going to be here for the Rolex 24 this week, I'm going to do my best to carry around Weekend Sports Cars stickers in my pocket.
Me too.
Graham will do his best.
Yep.
And if you see us, stop us.
Yep.
We make them. We pay for them ourselves. We make them just to give away, just as a thanks. It's fun.
Just come and say hello. I had a bit bizarrely a couple, and hello guys, bumped into me in the immigration queue at Orlando International Airport, and I was chatting away to one of the Gibson Tech guys.
Is this when you're spread eagle with my level 5 shirt on your back?
Absolutely. And if you've not seen that on social media, please look at Stephen Kilby's Twitter account. And turned around when they heard my voice and said, "Are you Graham Goodwin?" And they'll be there on Friday, and they'll be more than welcome. And they'll be getting those stickers. And I hope they're going to be amongst our first stoppers and get one of the T-shirts each as well.
Brilliant. We've got 75 of those, so come out early. All thanks to Mazda, who has had those made for us. Where should we go next on fun?
Scott Imus, Facebook, what GT cars of recent vintage would you want to see in GT, GTLM go up against the current crop? I want to give a bit of a plug to something. And I'm not quite going to answer your question this time, Scott, and I'll bring this one back. It's to do with, for me, what was an extraordinary answer I got in an interview you can see on Daily Sports Car this week from Stefan Mattel. When I asked him the question about the forthcoming drawbridge that's coming up about GT3 production levels, you've got to have, I think it's 20 cars built and sold. And I asked him, are there going to be companies that are going to be falling foul of that? And I think there's an acknowledgement that there likely were going to be. But even without being asked what happens next, what he said was, look, we are customer motorsport. If you've not got a customer motorsport setup that's capable of producing those numbers, then build 6, put 2 in IMSA, put 2 in the WEC, put 2 in the LMS, and go GTE racing. You'd be more than welcome. I found that an extraordinary thing for Stefan to say. Actually, a very encouraging thing for Stefan to say. Because is that the beginning of a meeting of minds? Because there certainly has been precious little of that.
A converging of common sense.
It's long overdue. There is plenty enough ground here for effectively the 3 major players, the ACO, SRO and IMSA worldwide, and others, of course, to get plenty enough of the pie. And actually, if there is that opportunity for a little bit of cross-fertilisation, I think that would be very welcome. Who might that be? Well, I think you've got to look at the manufacturers that at the moment aren't selling a whole number of their GT3 products. But Scott, we'll put the rest of that question in for next week without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, the closer here in our fun topic from Doug Bonham. I think I might even have the answer to it as well. It says, fun hypothetical. All the teams wake up Saturday before the race. Their transporters and cars are gone. The teams have to race their rental cars.
We're in Daytona. It's perfectly possible.
There might have been a few that have been stolen already. The teams have to race their rental cars, meaning seating for 5 comfortably. Oh, and Bo Barfield introduces a new group for tech inspection, the 24 Hours of Lemons judges in full Lemons mode. Which IMSA team takes the best advantage of the new rule looseness, and which comes up with an impromptu theme the best? I think we might have mentioned this early last year when we started the show, I would have to say the Corvette Racing Team, because crew chief Dan Binks is an experienced and I believe race-winning 24 Hours of Lemons
Is he now?
driver, crew chief, car maker, and some of the Corvette Racing crew as well.
So would it be rental cars, or would it be cars they've had to go down the road and buy?
Oh, well, here's the thing.
The Lemons, is it $500?
Yeah, $500. But keep in mind that Binks would find a way to shoe one of those Corvette C7R motors into their rental Chevy minivan, provided such things exist. I don't even know. But, yeah, that there would be some crazy, crazy power.
If it's rental cars, I'm going to say it's going to be the Porsche team. Without a shadow of a doubt. It's sponsored by Hertz. They're going to get the best car.
Okay. I heard about someone who was loaned a Cadillac this week in the media. They might be a contender in there as well, but we'll leave that where it is. Thematically,
I think they might have a target on their back.
Thematically, I would say, is there any choice other than Magnus Racing the best theme for that entry?
Absolutely.
It would have to be. And I read in the Magnus press release that just came out for this event that not only will their live stream, famous 24-hour live stream, be back, but PR guru, the man behind it all, Sean Heckman, half of the Dinner with Racers team, did mention that his final live stream.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, or his final, unless I misread it. But, reading between the lines, it looks like...
Well, we've got to find out what's going on there with Sean.
Well,
he's a talent, that boy, isn't he?
Well, look, having good lawyers helps. They can, they can delay your having to turn yourself in. But yeah, so I don't know if they're just deciding to do one final go round with the live stream and then say farewell to that. But yeah, all right. What should we do, Graham? We're kind of at the point where we need to do other things that are work related. Should we take another question or two from a different category?
Well, we're going to leave the ACO. Wek Haslam's ACO topics for this week. I think we just wrap it up with a couple of impressions of what's here.
You do a mean Oliver Gavin.
No, that's just my regular voice.
Oh, that's okay. I apologize.
I think we should actually, though, share with the listener the suggestion we've made.
You say listener?
Listeners.
Singular.
Well, there's at least one listening.
We're not doing that
bad. No. We've seen a lot of contributions to the kind of general theme of hashtag #IMSA50 with the tribute liveries. The Brumos Porsches unveiled today. You've got there must be almost a dozen cars out there with some nod to the heritage. Not seen anything from Corvette. They would say, I'm sure, that their tribute livery is the same Millennium Yellow they've won every...
Yes, they're throwing back to 1999, I believe.
But we did come up, I thought, with a suggestion that I think they should be taking on board. And that was... They have brought back a couple of heritage drivers.
Ooh.
Again.
Getting these pensioners, back out, it helps. Life after motor racing doesn't pay that well, so good to see that Danish, Dutch, I can never remember where that guy's from. Kevin? Kevin Magnussen?
He's the younger one.
Okay.
He's the younger one. He's definitely the one with no hair.
Kevin Christensen.
No, that's different. No.
Okay.
No. It's Tom
Magnussen.
Magnus Racingson.
Yes. John Potter Magnussen. I got it. Yes.
There is a buzz here, without a shadow of a doubt. And I think I said in an earlier answer, it does have the atmosphere for me of something special, but it's something special that is very peculiarly American. And American racing is something that's always drawn an international audience at this level of sports car racing, road racing in particular. This feels, for me, MP, probably more like the ALMS in its heyday than anything I've seen since that time. And that's not, it does not feel like the international invitational event that we've seen in the past, and it's lost a little of that. That will be because of the prototype change, but it's got something else different here. It is American pride in the product, and that's a great thing.
You're spot on, and we're here, so obviously we have a vested interest in the series, and we want its absolute success. I think you raise a great point, and it's an honest one. having been there for just about all, I think I missed a year, 2 years out of the entire lifespan of the ALMS. I wasn't there for the first go-round at Petit Le Mans and such, but starting around late 99, 2000, was there for many races, working at some of them. And I forget what year. One year I must have done something really bad because Speed assigned me to cover Grand Am in 2009. So
excuse me, tears in my eyes.
Yeah, the Canned Ham series. But I mean, I was still around ALMS. But having been there for pretty much all of it, and seen what it was at its best, today's IMSA is not there. But I can see a pathway to it.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's, again, this is not a critical statement of IMSA. It's the ALMS at its finest was so damn good. It was one of those, once in a lifetime, 2, 3, some folks that I know who've been around to see the Can-Am days.
Yeah.
Early Can-Am and Trans Am. I am so jealous because I think in your life you've seen the manufacturer wars that made Trans Am so amazing. You've seen Porsche 91730 with a zillion horsepower. Oh, my God. You've seen IMSA. You've seen the American Le Mans, right? I'm jealous as can be of that. I have seen IMSA. I have seen the American Le Mans series, saw Grand Am, obviously. But I can see how IMSA could be there.
Yeah.
The BOP thing, I'm just you can't ignore it. It's always going to limit its outright awesomeness. The restricted mindset, the restricted approach is always going to be something where you are left saying this is less than the ultimate it could be.
Yes.
And so just of that line that I draw through almost every motor racing series that exploded and was so popular and that folks look back and say, oh, it's the best. Those tend to be the cars in whatever open wheel, closed wheel, you name it, that were not crazily restricted. And so we saw insane speeds. Our minds were blown. The counter argument is yes, but then they crashed because cost. I get that. But to me, it's, would you rather say, oh my goodness, I had the finest meal 3 or 4 times in my life and was smart about it the rest of the time, or I eat plain oatmeal every day and I have a couple slices of wheat bread and I never drink this, I never touch that, and you go, great, I get it, but boy, a life of kind of there, almost there, but never really allowing yourself to feel and drink in the full heights of something. That's why, again, IMSA's getting there. There's a possibility, Graham.
We've been through that cycle, actually not here with IMSA, but with the FIWC. For me, it was a privilege to be a part of that and to observe that for those 2 or 3 years when we those 3 shooting stars of LMP1 hybrids. Would I give that back to save us from where we are now in this transitional period? No, I wouldn't. I'm pleased to be able to say that I experienced every race of that period. Being there to watch that was a wonderful thing. And I guess that's the thing. You can go and watch a night sky, and it's very pretty. But I'll tell you something. You see a shooting star, you're going to tell your friends. That's the difference. And for me, what we do miss in the modern era is that shooting for extremes, extreme performance, extreme achievements. What you're now left with in the modern era, and this is where I think IMSA are trying to address it, is bringing forward world-class events. And that's where you can cover off some of the gap.
And that might also come back to the question earlier about how do we get more folks involved, more folks interested. Some of the events are many of the events are truly amazing. A lot of thought and effort is put in by IMSA. Also, a lot of heavy lifting done by those tracks as well, Graham, to say, hey, you're going to love being here and love what we put in front of you. The cars might not be everything that they were, quote, back in the day. We're also, again, if rain avoids us, we could be breaking the outright lap record set by P.J. Jones. So, again, there's speed here. There's performance here. Some of us are burdened with having seen maximum speed and always crave that. But, I mean, again, these are the concerns of nothing, right? We have seen these things. We wish we always had them and they never went away. The fact is we have something great.
You do. And let's think back as we close this show and look forward to the Rolex 24. Go back to one of the answers given by Juan Montoya at the top of the show, which is about the capabilities of these cars. Remember what he said about the downforce, how that compares to some of the extraordinary race cars that he's raced in his lifetime.
He ranked this Acura second behind his Formula One car.
That's staggering. That blew me away as an answer.
And he's an OBS guy. I mean, that's not a PR statement.
No, it's absolutely not.
If you know Montoya,
no
PR.
There was no PR in that answer. And I think that is something just to ponder. With the challenges that this particular track actually produces, and with Sebring to come, and then the rest of the season to come, here we are, a show unashamedly, that's my first new word.
Please write that one down, Andrew Bacca.
There you go. Dominated by IMSA, as it should be. And we're now going to be into a cycle where each of these major series, these major organisers gets its turn at that. Next week, it's going to be people's impressions of what we've seen this coming weekend. It's going to be what the next big race to come, which is going to be the Bathurst 12 Hour. I'll be making my way down there. And there will be still more things to talk about as more of the 2019 series come into sharper focus, including some words which will be presented by you and by me on the internet about this and about other things to come in the very near future.
Let me close on this, Graham. And we made a decision. We agreed at the end of last year we would avoid referencing any sites or media outlets that we were not particularly fond of or didn't have a lot of respect for. And we're not going to make any changes to that.
Nope.
I will mention, though, that I am reminded how thankful I am for our listeners in that for you, I'm thankful for you who listen and you who support us, you who send in questions, you who tweet, retweet, share, like, thumbs up, comment, you name it, what we do. Because through your support, value has been attached and assigned to this Week in Sports Cars show and to what we do here on the little podcast bearing my name. Because as a result, we have had not only Cooper Tires, which came on last year as our very first season-long title partner. Cooper reached out before I could reach out to them to ask about 2019. Brilliant. And said, hey, we set a reminder. Our great dear friend Chris said, hey, I set a reminder. You want to do this again next year? We're up. I said, hey, great. That's amazing. Right? That doesn't happen very often where folks who support you are the ones who come to you and say, hey, you game? And on top of that, we've had the Justice Brothers, automotive chemicals, lubricants, all kinds of wonderful stuff for not just the automotive industry, but a variety of industries. Justice Brothers have come on as well. So we now have two title partners in Cooper Tires and the Justice Brothers for the full year. I think we might have another. Won't necessarily be a title. Could be a partner associated directly with one of our weekly shows. But the cool thing is because of you, folks say, hey, there are valuable folks that we would like to have our name included with in speaking to your audience, just not to beat them over the head with hearing our name, but we want to do that. And so this comes back to me, Graham, knowing that at least for some things that we saw just recently announced, maybe through the podcast format, there are folks who believe that taking your questions would only be done if you pay. If you pay for the privilege, only then would your questions would a consideration come in to receive questions, to answer your questions during the podcast. And if more comes in, then if payment is involved, live shows could be put on. And so whatever their business is, that's their business. That's fine. Again, whatever makes sense to them, that's awesome. A and B appeared. First of all, So, we just, you are our show and our format. Your questions are it. And so it's just a sense of thanks knowing that is a format we have. And the thought of actually turning you all into a commodity where you have to pay to hear well, I wouldn't pay to listen to us. I don't charge you that much.
I just want to get out the door.
Anyways, it's a little bit of an off-topic rant, but just it all comes back to you and thanking you for giving us this opportunity. I want to thank two groups of people. The group of people that almost from the start have been every week putting in really high-quality questions. Democrats and Republicans.
No. Okay. I also want to thank the people who have been joining us in a very steady flow through this year. And every single week, I'm seeing different names. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And yes, we're reaching out to some of those groups on Reddit. You guys are awesome on the Facebook pages, and you guys are awesome on Twitter, and you guys are equally awesome.
Can we reveal we have just added MySpace? Coming, starting in for our 1-year anniversary show next week. No,
okay. 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be adding "shouting out of the window."
Yes. .org.net.
Absolutely. But look, it enriches my week to read other people's takes, other people's thoughts. I know we're thinking about another couple of features about just asking people for a little bit of their thoughts and feedback on these things, because you know what, some of these shows will be an hour, some will be an hour and a half, some of them will be talking to wee small hours, and that's fine by me.
You know what this is, Graham? This is the end of our, I guess, end of the first calendar year.
It is.
Of the Week in Sports Car Show. Next week's will be our first anniversary, first episode of the second year.
Season 2, episode 1.
Volume series. Good Lord. I was watching Luke Cage Season 2 on the way out here, so I'm confused on episode serials and otherwise. But let's say farewell. And good Lord, we caught a lot of grief when we just impromptu decided to do this at the end of last year's Rolex 24, and I'm so thankful that we did. And this has become the place where you and I talk about sports cars on the internet with our voices being heard. So thank you, brother.
And thank you, too, for thinking of me and reaching out to me to do this. I got one final thing to say, and it's to the listeners. Enjoy the race.
Amen. Cooper Tires, Justice Brothers, thank you so much for making this possible. Thank you, dear listeners. And if you're going to be here Friday, bring tomatoes, bring batteries, just huck all kinds of things at us. We would be really disappointed if you don't. I'm Marshall Pruitt. That's Graham Goodwin. We're going to get back to work.